Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell stood on the deck of the USS Oceanographer, squinting against the bright Carolina sun. Her team, led by Lieutenant Jake Thompson, was preparing for what should have been a routine mission to investigate an old shipwreck off the coast of North Carolina. As Sarah pored over ancient maps, Jake huddled with the team, discussing diving strategies and safety protocols. The warm ocean breeze carried a sense of anticipation as the team suited up and plunged into the crystal-clear waters. Hours passed as they meticulously combed the seafloor, their expectations waning with each passing minute. Just as they were about to call it a day, a shout crackled through their communication devices. "I found something," exclaimed Petty Officer Ana Rodriguez, her voice tinged with excitement. The team converged on Ana's location, where a barnacle-encrusted chest lay half-buried in the sand. With careful maneuvering, they managed to bring the heavy container to the surface. As they hauled it aboard the Oceanographer, a hush fell over the crew. Jake stepped forward, his hands trembling slightly as he pried open the rusty lock. The lid creaked open, revealing a treasure trove that took their breath away. Rare coins bearing the insignia of the Confederacy glinted in the sunlight, alongside yellow documents that whispered of a bygone era. "My God," Sarah breathed, her eyes wide with wonder. This is incredible." As the team gathered around, his voice low and urgent, "This could change everything." Sarah nodded, her mind already racing with the historical implications of their discovery. Little did she know that this moment would mark the beginning of a moral dilemma that would test their loyalties, challenge their principles, and ultimately redefine their understanding of duty and honor. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the deck of the USS Oceanographer, Jake led Sarah to a secluded corner of the ship. His eyes darted around, ensuring their privacy before he leaned in close, his voice barely above a whisper. "Sarah, I've been thinking about this discovery," he began, his tone urgent. "We have an opportunity here, a chance to make a real difference." Sarah's brow furrowed, confusion etched across her face. "What do you mean, Jake? This is a significant historical find. We need to report it immediately." Jake shook his head, a determined glint in his eye. "Hear me out. What if we kept this quiet for now? Used it to fund something truly important?" As Jake outlined his plan to use the treasure to finance a rehabilitation program for veterans, Sarah felt her world tilt on its axis. The ethical implications of Jake's suggestion hit her like a physical blow, leaving her momentarily speechless. "Jake, are you out of your mind?" she finally managed, her voice a harsh whisper. "That's not just unethical, it's illegal. We took an oath." But Jake was undeterred. "Think about it, Sarah. How many of our brothers and sisters in arms are suffering right now? This could help them in ways the system has failed to. The history can wait. These people need help now." As Sarah struggled to process Jake's words, she felt the weight of their discovery pressing down on her. The moral implications seemed to grow with each passing moment, threatening to suffocate her. Unable to keep her concerns to herself, Sarah confided in Ana during their next watch. The young petty officer's reaction was immediate and vehement. "Lieutenant, we can't possibly consider hiding this," Ana insisted, her eyes wide with disbelief. "It goes against everything we stand for." As word spread among the crew, a palpable tension began to build. What had started as a triumphant discovery was quickly morphing into a moral minefield. With Sarah caught in the middle, torn between her duty to the Navy and her loyalty to Jake. The mess hall of the USS Oceanographer, usually a place of camaraderie and relaxation, had become a battleground of ideologies. The air was thick with tension as the crew, divided by their conflicting views on the treasure's fate, engaged in heated debates over their meals. "We have a responsibility to history," Ana argued passionately, her fork punctuating each word. "This isn't just about us or even the Navy, it's about preserving our nation's heritage." Across the table, Petty Officer Tom Martinez shook his head, his expression grim. "And what about our responsibility to the living? To the men and women who've sacrificed everything for this country? They need more than just history lessons." Sarah watched the exchange with a growing sense of unease. She had hoped that by allowing open discussion, they might reach a consensus. Instead, the divide seemed to be growing deeper by the minute. "Enough," she finally interjected, her voice cutting through the din. "We're a team, remember? We need to approach this rationally." But even as she spoke, Sarah could feel the weight of her own indecision. Every argument made sense in its own way, and she found herself torn between her duty as an officer and her empathy for Jake's cause. Jake, for his part, remained steadfast in his conviction. Despite the growing opposition, he clung to his belief that the end justified the means. "I know it's not an easy decision," he told Sarah later that evening, his voice low and intense. "But think about the good we could do. We have a chance to make a real difference in people's lives." As the days passed, the atmosphere on the ship grew increasingly tense. Crew members who had once worked seamlessly together now eyed each other with suspicion. Sarah found herself caught in the middle, trying desperately to maintain order while grappling with her own moral dilemma. The situation reached a boiling point when news arrived that the Navy had initiated an investigation into the shipwreck. The announcement sent a ripple of panic through the crew, and Sarah felt her stomach drop. Time was running out, and they needed to make a decision, fast. The news of the Navy's investigation hit the crew of the USS Oceanographer like a torpedo. Sarah felt her heart race as she read the official communiqué, her mind whirling with the potential consequences of their actions, or rather, their inaction. "They're sending a team to inspect the site," she informed Jake, her voice tight with anxiety. "We need to come clean, Jake. This has gone too far." Jake's face was a mask of determination, but Sarah could see the flicker of fear in his eyes. "We're so close, Sarah. If we can just hold out a little longer." But Sarah's resolve was strengthening. The weight of her silence was becoming unbearable, a constant pressure threatening to crush her under its weight. "And what happens when they find out? We'll lose everything, our careers, our freedom. Is that worth it?" As they debated, the rest of the crew buzzed with nervous energy. Whispered conversations and furtive glances filled the corridors of the ship. The once cohesive unit was fracturing under the strain of their shared secret. The tension reached a fever pitch when word came down that Captain Reynolds, their commanding officer, wanted to meet with the entire team. The announcement sent a wave of panic through the group. "This is it," Tom muttered, his face pale. "We're done for." Jake paced the deck, his mind racing. "Maybe not," he said, more to himself than anyone else. Maybe we can still salvage this." But as Sarah watched her friend and leader grasp at straws, she felt a resolve solidifying within her. The path forward, though difficult, was becoming clearer with each passing moment. As the hour of their meeting with Captain Reynolds approached, Sarah pulled Jake aside one last time. "We have to tell the truth," she insisted, her voice firm but compassionate. "It's the only way." Jake's shoulders sagged, the weight of his decisions finally seeming to catch up with him. "I just wanted to help," he said softly, his voice filled with regret. Sarah placed a hand on his shoulder, feeling the tension in his muscles. "I know," she replied, "but we can find another way. One that doesn't compromise who we are or what we stand for." As they walked towards the captain's quarters, Sarah felt a mix of dread and relief. The truth would come out, for better or worse, and they would face the consequences together. As the investigation loomed over them, Sarah found herself grappling not only with the moral implications of their discovery, but also with her own personal struggles. In the quiet hours of the night, as she lay in her bunk staring at the ceiling, the weight of her position as a woman in a male-dominated field pressed down on her. She thought back to her days at the Naval Academy, the constant pressure to prove herself, to be not just good, but exceptional. Every decision, every action scrutinized under a microscope. And now, faced with this ethical dilemma, she felt that pressure tenfold. One wrong move could undo years of hard work and sacrifice. Across the ship, Jake was fighting his own demons. In the darkness of his quarters, he was haunted by the memory of his best friend from basic training, a fellow sailor who had taken his own life after struggling to readjust to civilian life. The image of his friend's face, once full of life and laughter, now twisted in despair, fueled Jake's determination to make a difference. As dawn broke, casting a pale light through the portholes, Sarah sought out Jake. They met on the deck, the salty breeze carrying the weight of their unspoken fears. "I can't sleep," Sarah admitted, her voice barely audible above the crash of waves against the hull. Jake nodded, his eyes fixed on the horizon. "Oh, me neither." For a moment, they stood in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Then, slowly, they began to open up, sharing their fears, their doubts, and their hopes. "Oh, I feel like I'm walking a tightrope," Sarah confessed. "One misstep, and everything I've worked for comes crashing down." Jake turned to her, his expression softening. "You're the strongest person I know. Sarah, whatever happens, you'll land on your feet." As they talked, the tension between them began to ease. They remembered why they had joined the Navy in the first place: to serve, to make a difference. Signaling the start of another day, Sarah and Jake made their way back to their posts. The weight of their decision still loomed over them, but they faced it with renewed determination, knowing that whatever came next, they would face it together. The day of reckoning arrived with the morning sun, casting long shadows across the deck of the USS Oceanographer. Sarah and Jake stood at the bow, the weight of their impending decision hanging heavy in the air between them. "We can't keep this up, Jake," Sarah said, her voice barely audible above the crashing waves. "The investigation team will be here soon. We need to make a decision." Jake's jaw clenched, his internal struggle evident in the furrow of his brow. "I know you think I'm wrong, Sarah, but I still believe we could do so much good with this discovery." Sarah turned to face him, her eyes filled with a mixture of compassion and determination. "I understand why you want to do this, Jake. I really do. But at what cost? Our integrity? Our careers? The trust of our team and the entire Navy?" As they debated, their voices rising with the intensity of their convictions, Tom approached, his face etched with concern. "Lieutenants," he interrupted, "I think we need to consider the bigger picture here. Whatever we decide, it's going to affect all of us." The three of them stood in silence for a moment, the gravity of the situation weighing heavily on their shoulders. The sound of footsteps drew their attention, and they turned to see Anna approaching, her expression resolute. "I've been thinking," Anna began, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. "Maybe there's a way we can honor both our duty to the Navy and our desire to help veterans." As Anna outlined her idea to propose an official program that would use a portion of the treasure's value for veteran rehabilitation while preserving its historical significance, a glimmer of hope began to emerge. Jake listened intently, his expression softening as he considered this alternative. "It's not exactly what I had in mind," he admitted, "but it could work. It's certainly better than the risk we're taking now." Sarah felt a wave of relief wash over her. "This could be our way forward," she agreed, turning to Jake with a renewed sense of purpose. "We can present this idea to the investigation team. It shows initiative and a commitment to both our history and our veterans." As the group discussed the details of their new plan, a sense of unity began to return. The division that had threatened to tear them apart was slowly healing, replaced by a shared vision for the future. With the decision made, Sarah took a deep breath, feeling as though a great weight had been lifted from her shoulders. "All right, team," she said, her voice filled with determination. "Let's do this right. It's time to come clean and present our proposal." As they made their way to meet the incoming investigation team, Sarah felt a mix of anxiety and hope. Whatever the outcome, she knew they were finally doing the right thing. With their decision made, a new sense of urgency gripped the crew of the USS Oceanographer. The investigation team was due to arrive within hours. "We need a complete inventory before they arrive." Jake nodded, already moving towards the secure storage where they had kept the treasure. "I'll handle the documentation. Sarah, you and Anna start drafting the proposal for the Veteran Rehabilitation Program." As the team sprang into action, the ship buzzed with renewed energy. The tension that had divided them was now channeled into a collective purpose. Tom, and a few other crew members began preparing a presentation area, knowing they would need to make a strong first impression on the investigation team. In the ship's small library, Sarah and Anna huddled over a computer, their fingers flying across the keyboard as they outlined their proposal. They knew it had to be comprehensive yet concise, balancing the historical value of their find with the potential impact on veterans' lives. "We need to emphasize the precedent this could set," Anna suggested, her eyes bright with determination. "This isn't just about this one discovery. It's about creating a model for how historical finds can benefit both our past and our present." Sarah nodded, feeling a surge of pride in her young colleague's insight. "Excellent point. Let's make that a key feature of our proposal." As the hours ticked by, the race against time intensified. Jake and his team worked tirelessly to catalog every item, knowing that full transparency was crucial to their plan's success. The sound of camera shutters and the scratch of pen on paper filled the air as they documented their find in meticulous detail. Just as they were putting the finishing touches on their preparations, a call came through from the bridge. The investigation team's helicopter was approaching. Sarah took a deep breath, looking around at her crew. Despite the exhaustion evident on their faces, she saw determination and unity in their eyes. "This is it, everyone," she said, her voice carrying across the deck. "Remember, we're doing the right thing. Let's show them what the USS Oceanographer is made of." As the distant thrum of helicopter blades grew louder, Sarah felt a mix of anxiety and resolve. They had made their choice, and now it was time to face the consequences. Whatever the outcome, they would face it together, as a team united in their commitment to both their duty and their values. The rhythmic thud of the helicopter's blades grew louder as it approached the USS Oceanographer, the downdraft whipping up spray from the ocean's surface. Sarah stood at attention on the deck, flanked by Jake and the rest of the team, their faces a mix of determination and apprehension. As the investigation team disembarked, led by Commander Harriet Walsh, a stern-faced woman with piercing blue eyes, Sarah stepped forward. "Commander Walsh, welcome aboard the Oceanographer. I'm Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell." Commander Walsh's gaze swept over the assembled crew, her expression unreadable. "Lieutenant Mitchell, I understand you have something to report." Sarah took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. "Yes, Commander. If you'll follow me, we have prepared a full briefing on our recent discovery." As they made their way to the makeshift presentation area, Sarah could feel the tension radiating from her team. Jake walked beside her, his jaw set in determination, while Anna and Tom followed close behind, carrying folders filled with their hastily prepared documentation. Commander Walsh's piercing gaze took in every detail of the ship and crew as they walked. "I hope you understand the seriousness of this situation, Lieutenant Mitchell," she said, her voice low and measured. "Withholding information about a historical find is a grave offense." Sarah nodded, her throat dry. "We do, Commander. That's why we've prepared a full disclosure and a proposal that we believe will serve both the interests of historical preservation and our commitment to serving our fellow service members." As they reached the presentation area, Jake stepped forward, spreading out the carefully cataloged artifacts on the table. "Commander Walsh, what you see before you is a treasure trove of Civil War-era coins and documents, discovered during our routine investigation of a shipwreck off the Carolina coast." Walsh's eyebrows rose slightly, the first crack in her stoic demeanor. "Impressive," she murmured, leaning in to examine a tarnished gold coin. "And you say you have a proposal?" Sarah took a deep breath, launching into their carefully prepared presentation. She outlined their initial discovery, their proposal to use a portion of the treasure's value to fund a comprehensive rehabilitation program for veterans, while preserving the bulk of the find for historical study and museum display. As she spoke, Sarah could see the mix of emotions playing across Commander Walsh's face: surprise, skepticism, and finally, a grudging respect. When Sarah finished, the commander was silent for a long moment, her gaze moving from the artifacts to the earnest faces of the crew. "Your honesty in coming forward is commendable," Walsh finally said, her tone softening slightly. As is your creative thinking," in proposing this rehabilitation program. However, her voice sharpened, the fact remains that you initially chose to withhold this discovery. That cannot go unaddressed. Jake stepped forward, his shoulders squared. Commander, if there's to be any reprimand, it should fall on me. I was the one who initially suggested keeping the find secret. Sarah felt a surge of both pride and concern for her friend. With all due respect, Commander, she interjected, we made this decision as a team. We all bear responsibility for our actions. Commander Walsh looked between them, her expression unreadable. Your loyalty to each other is admirable, but it doesn't change the facts. There will be consequences for this lapse in judgment. As the weight of her words settled over the crew, Anna spoke up, her voice strong despite her nervousness. Commander, we understand that we made a mistake, but we hope that our transparency now and our proposal for how to use this discovery for the greater good will be taken into consideration. Walsh nodded slowly, her stern expression softening almost imperceptibly. It will be, Petty Officer. Now, I need to make some calls. I expect full cooperation from all of you as we proceed with a thorough investigation of this find and your actions. As Commander Walsh stepped away to confer with her team, Sarah exchanged glances with Jake and the others. They had laid all their cards on the table. Now, all they could do was wait and hope that their honesty and innovative thinking would count for something in the face of their initial lapse in judgment. The next few hours would determine not just the fate of their careers, but also the potential impact their discovery could have on countless veterans' lives. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the deck of the oceanographer, Sarah and her team stood united, ready to face whatever consequences lay ahead. As the golden hues of sunset painted the sky, Commander Walsh returned to the presentation area, her face a mask of professionalism. The crew of the USS Oceanographer stood at attention, a palpable tension hanging in the air. At ease, Walsh commanded, her voice cutting through the silence. I've spoken with my superiors, and we've come to a decision regarding your situation. Sarah felt her heart pounding in her chest, acutely aware of Jake's presence beside her and the rest of the team behind her. They had faced this challenge together, and now they would face the consequences as one. Commander Walsh's gaze swept over the assembled crew before settling on Sarah. Lieutenant Mitchell, your team's actions in initially concealing this discovery were a serious breach of protocol and trust. However, she paused, the hint of a smile tugging at the corner of her mouth. Your subsequent honesty, the thoroughness of your documentation, and the innovative nature of your proposal have not gone unnoticed. A collective breath seemed to be held as the commander continued. The Navy has decided to move forward with a modified version of your proposal. A significant portion of the treasure will be preserved for historical study and museum display, as is proper for a find of this magnitude. However, we are also establishing a new initiative, inspired by your suggestion to use a percentage of the value from similar historical finds to fund veteran support programs. The tension in the air broke, replaced by a wave of relief and cautious excitement. Sarah felt a smile spreading across her face, mirrored in the expressions of her teammates. This doesn't mean you're off the hook, Walsh added, her tone serious once more. There will be official reprimands in all of your files, and you'll each face a probationary period. But, she softened slightly, you'll be allowed to continue your service and will play a key role in developing this new initiative. Jake stepped forward, his voice thick with emotion. Thank you, Commander. We understand the gravity of our actions, and we're grateful for this opportunity to make amends and to serve in a new capacity. Walsh nodded, a glimmer of approval in her eyes. Your dedication to your fellow service members is commendable, Lieutenant Thompson. Channel that dedication into this new initiative, and you may yet turn this mistake into something truly beneficial for the Navy and our veterans. As Commander Walsh began to outline the next steps in the process, Sarah felt a surge of pride in her team. They had faced a moral crucible and, despite their initial misstep, had emerged with their integrity intact and a chance to make a real difference. The treasure they had discovered would not only preserve a piece of history, but would now also serve as a foundation for supporting the very people who had dedicated their lives to serving their country. Sarah gathered her team around her. "I'm proud of all of you," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "We made a mistake, but we owned up to it and found a way to turn it into something positive." That's what true leadership and teamwork are all about. The crew of the USS Oceanographer stood together on the deck, watching the helicopter disappear into the darkening sky. They had weathered a storm of their own making and had come out stronger for it. As they turned to face the future, they did so with a renewed sense of purpose and unity. Sarah Mitchell stood at the podium in the newly inaugurated Veterans Historical Support Center, her naval uniform crisp and her posture proud. The auditorium was filled with a mix of military personnel, veterans, historians, and media representatives, all gathered to witness the culmination of a year's worth of hard work and dedication. "Welcome, everyone," Sarah began, her voice carrying across the hushed room. "Today, we celebrate not just the preservation of our nation's history, but also a new chapter in how we support those who have served our country." As she spoke, Sarah's gaze fell on familiar faces in the audience. Jake Thompson sat in the front row, his eyes shining with pride. Beside him were Ana Rodriguez and Tom Martinez, both sporting new insignias that reflected their recent promotions. Even Commander Walsh was present, her stern countenance softened by a look of approval. "1 year ago, a discovery off the coast of North Carolina led us down an unexpected path," Sarah continued. "What began as a moral dilemma has transformed into an opportunity to bridge our past and our present, to honor our history while supporting our heroes." She gestured to the side of the stage, where a portion of the Civil War-era treasure was displayed in a secure glass case. This treasure, a tangible piece of our nation's history, now serves a dual purpose. While the majority of the find has been preserved for historical study and public education, a significant portion of its value has been channeled into programs that directly benefit our veterans. Sarah went on to outline the initiatives that had been born from their proposal: mental health support programs, job training workshops, and community integration projects, all funded by a combination of the treasure's value and subsequent donations inspired by their story. "But perhaps the most valuable outcome," Sarah said, her voice filled with emotion, "has been the change in how we approach similar discoveries. The Navy has established new protocols, ensuring that future finds can be evaluated not just for their historical significance, but also for their potential to support our service members." As Sarah concluded her speech, the room erupted in applause. She stepped back from the podium, feeling a sense of fulfillment that went beyond any accolade or promotion she had ever received. Later, as the team gathered at a small reception, Jake pulled Sarah aside. "Can you believe how far we've come?" he asked, shaking his head in wonder. "From nearly throwing away our careers to changing Navy policy and helping countless vets." Sarah smiled, remembering the turmoil of that day on the Oceanographer. "It just goes to show that integrity and perseverance can turn even our mistakes into something meaningful." Anna joined them, a glass of champagne in hand. "You know, when I first spoke up against hiding the treasure, I never imagined it would lead to all this. It's incredible what can happen when we stand up for what's right." As they reminisced and celebrated, Sarah felt a deep sense of gratitude. The challenge they had faced had not only strengthened their bonds as a team, but had also allowed them to create a lasting impact on the lives of their fellow service members. Commander Walsh approached the group, her usually stern expression replaced by one of genuine warmth. "Lieutenant Mitchell, I must commend you and your team once again. Your ability to turn a potential disaster into a force for good is a testament to your leadership and the strength of your crew." Sarah nodded, accepting the compliment with humility. "Thank you, Commander. But this success belongs to all of us. It's proof of what we can achieve when we work together and stay true to our values." As the evening drew to a close, Sarah looked around at her team, no, her family, and felt a surge of pride. They had faced a moral crossroads and chosen the path of integrity, turning a moment of weakness into a legacy of strength and support. As they stood together, united by their shared experience and commitment to service, Sarah knew that whatever challenges the future might hold, they would face them with honor, courage, and an unwavering dedication to doing what was right. The treasure they had found had been valuable, but the true treasure was the impact they had made and the lessons they had learned.
Disclaimer: this channel does not support or tolerate any form of discrimination, racism, prejudice, or violation of human rights. The stories presented here are original and created by the author with the aim of promoting reflection, awareness, and dialogue. All content is developed with respect for diversity and the dignity of all people.